What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here in the Capitol Club in downtown Jackson, Mississippi. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. How you doing this afternoon, Dakota?
I am fantastic, Tyler. We got these great views here at the Capitol Club in downtown Jackson, Mississippi. They got daily lunches here, events, networking events, parking garage. They got it all.
They got it all. So if you're not a member, you need to go online and join today. And you want to introduce our special guest to us today?
I do. Today we have special guest Chris Voss, CEO and founder of the Black Swan Group, best-selling author of Never Split the Difference, and former lead negotiator for the FBI International Kidnapping Response. Chris, welcome.
Hey guys, I'm happy to be here. And you guys are at the Capitol Club, top of the building there, huh?
We are at the rooftop bar. It's actually right in front of us, behind the computer.
Yep, 20th floor.
Sure it's a great place. Yeah, it's very cool.
It is. Well, we appreciate you coming on today, Chris. And then tell our guests what we're sipping on.
We are sipping on Chris's very own bourbon. This is called, it's chapter 1 of The Difference, and this is called The Foundation.
Man, I mean, we've tried a lot of bourbons on here.
We've tried 127 of them at this point, 128, something like that.
And this may have the best burn / smoothness combo that I've ever seen. I don't know how they achieved that in this bottle, but I mean, very smooth. You pick up, hints of the barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you'll go more detailed into your description here in a little bit, but
I have a more refined palate than Tyler.
Yeah,
That's what he's trying to say.
I hear you. But very good bourbon. I mean, my off the cuff opinion, I don't know, Chris, if they told you, that we review these on here, but I'm gonna have to give it one of our highest ratings. I'm gonna have to come in at a 9.9.
9.9 out of 10.
So, yep, I don't think we've given out maybe one
maybe 110 the entire time.
So, phenomenal bourbon. Now, you cannot buy this on the shelves.
Nope.
We'll get into this in our second episode with Chris, but you have to actually join the society that they have, the Bourbon Society. And what's it called, Chris? Just so I don't mess it up.
The Shareholders Society.
The Shareholders Society. And we'll talk more about that in the second episode. But very good. Some of the best bourbon I've ever had in my life. So good job, Chris.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're very proud of it. And it's won a bunch of awards. So you guys got good ability to taste.
Yeah. Well, Chris, when we start this thing off, before, the FBI hostage negotiations, all the high stakes things you've done, the book that you wrote. I mean, tell us a little bit about Chris. Who were you before all that, and kind of shaped you into the person that became the FBI hostage negotiator?
Yeah, in reality, I'm just a small town guy from Iowa. Small town in Iowa, Mount Pleasant, Iowa, 7,000 people there. Son of Richard and Joyce Voss. My father was an independent businessman, and he believed in putting his kids to work. If he's going to put a roof over your head, give you a place to sleep, and feed you, then you are obligated to make yourself useful. So, I grew up working. My father, simple, straight ahead, figured out guy, and that's really just kind of what I am. You're going to have trouble outworking a Voss.
Right.
And if you're willing to learn and you're willing to work, there's very little that you can't overcome. And so that's just really what I think of myself. It's just a regular guy who works hard and learns.
Love that.
Well, were you, at a young age, did you find yourself kind of drawn to negotiation, or was it something you picked up once you got in the FBI?
It was much further on down the line. I really don't remember much when I was young. I think I always liked to collaborate. Great negotiations, great collaboration. And I think I always leaned in the direction of wanting to collaborate with people. That could be the closest thing I could see to it. I mean, originally I was in SWAT. I was slated to go to the SWAT team with the police department. I was on the FBI SWAT team. And I shifted over to negotiations mostly because crisis response requires a decision. And inaction and indecision is probably the worst habit of mankind.
Hmm.
And so since I was in crisis response and I liked, decision making, I just shifted over to negotiations. Had a series of injuries to my knee and found myself in negotiation, and it ended up being better for me than anything else ever was.
Well, when you got into the negotiation side, obviously a SWAT situation, you're going into a building, very intense, high adrenaline. Did you find that those situations felt more intense? The adrenaline was higher, or was it actually in the negotiation room?
Yeah, the high of accomplishing, talking somebody out, getting somebody to surrender with just words, like the achievement and the high in that is really hard to describe. I remember I'd volunteered on a suicide hotline for a couple of years before I became a negotiator. And then very early in my negotiation career, I was lucky enough to be involved in a bank robbery with hostages, which is a really rare event. I mean, in the movies, they make it seem like it happens every day. In real life, in real life, it never happens. So if you get one of those, it's a rare event, and the flow, the high, the adrenaline rush afterwards, talking people out when you got bad guys with guns, you get SWAT team with guns, and your words get everybody out. That's pretty incredible stuff.
I got to imagine those moments live with you too, the good and the bad, right?
They do,
Yeah.
And they ain't all good,
Yeah.
It's impossible to be perfect. So if you do it long enough, things are going to go bad.
Yeah. But man, those good moments, I cannot imagine the rush, like you said, from being able to just breathe and having everybody safe and, the good guys won and nobody got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's incredibly satisfying. It was.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit. So what was one of the most high stake negotiations you've been part of?
Wow. There's a long list in reality. The Chase Manhattan bank robbery was a big deal. That was so unusual. We got everybody out, and I was lucky enough. The first bank robber to surrendered to me personally. Then I started doing international kidnapping, which is very much a different game. It can be more dangerous, and there were periods of time. 2004-ish time frame, Al Qaeda was killing everybody they got their hands on. Those were tough. I was involved in cases where people got killed. And you can't look the other way. Even if it looks bad from the beginning, you got to jump in.
Yeah.
So and in the long run, ultimately the bad guys or the good guys win. In those situations, but it was tough sledding for a while when people get killed.
How do you carry the weight of knowing it's all on your shoulders at that point? Well,
first of all, you learn the first time somebody got killed in a case I worked was in the Philippines. Me and my team, we'd had a tremendous success just before that. And, like a lot of championship teams, when you win a championship, afterwards, everybody's like, well, players, I didn't get enough credit. I contributed more than other people did.
Sure.
And the teamwork breaks down. So we had another case following right on the heels of the success. And there was a lot of discord between the governments. There wasn't a lot of cooperation inside the United States government. There wasn't a lot of cooperation inside the Philippine government. I think people resented that they didn't get more credit for the previous success, and a lot of people died. 2 out of 3 of the Americans were murdered by Abu Sayyaf. And that was a little bit tough first time around. But then my boss, Gary Nessner, had always said that what we did gave you the best chance of success. And I remember thinking, well, best chance of success means by definition sometimes things are going to go bad.
Yeah.
And you just got to live with that. And
it could be 1%. It could be 0.5%.
It's about 7% of the time.
Wow.
And so that means 9 times out of 10 things are going to be good. You're going to win.
Yeah.
But if you do it more than 10 times, you're starting to be on borrowed time. And then coming to grips with that, and then ultimately, at the end of the day, I remember the first when Martin Burnham was killed in the Philippines. I remember when I got that call 5 o'clock in the morning. I was in D.C. He was killed by friendly fire in a botched rescue attempt. And a month earlier, I was certain we were going to get him out. I even told the director of the FBI, I think they're coming out this weekend. And the bad guys double crossed us. I mean, it was nobody bargained in good faith on that one. And that bothered me for a long time. And then a few years later, I'm listening to a colleague describe a case in D.C. where an infant had gotten killed.
Oh.
And I'm listening to that case, and he gave the presentation to the hostage negotiation school at the FBI. And then he got down and he said, I don't know why I continue to talk about this. I guess it's my way of working my way through something bad that happened to me on a winter's day. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, dude, that wasn't your child. It wasn't your family member. Yeah, it was bad for you, but it happened to you? What about the mother of that child?
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I thought, I kind of been feeling sorry for myself too. As much as Martin Burnham mattered to me, and he did, he wasn't my father. He wasn't my husband. He wasn't my son. So at some point in time, you got to keep in perspective how much harder it is on the other families. And then you gotta double down. You're there to protect them.
Yeah. Well, let's make a shift here to the business world. So I know that you, in your book, you talk about you walk into Harvard. At the time, Harvard's the top school for negotiation. I guess the think tank is what you would say, because I know in your book you talk about it's more about, the idea of negotiation there than actually being in it. And then you walk in there, someone that's been in negotiation. Tell our listeners what it was like going into Harvard, being with all the educated negotiation people versus you coming off the streets with the real world experience.
The hard knocks, yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of felt like I was a street fighter, and they were boxing by rules, so to speak. And I was like, no, where I come from, there aren't any rules. And, I enjoyed working with a lot of really smart people there, really smart, who I respected. And they said, like, look, what you're doing absolutely applies. And in some ways, what the FBI's developed is more advanced than what we have. And we aligned on our definition of empathy, which was not sympathy. Bob Mnookin wrote a great book called Beyond Winning. And the second chapter in that book is the best chapter on empathy I've ever read. And it's called The Tension Between Empathy and Assertiveness. And I remember reading the title of that chapter thinking, yeah, there isn't any tension here. I'm looking forward to reading this to see what you have to say. And it was really, it was a headline grabbing. It was clickbait, his title was. And he goes on to describe there is no tension. It's a matter of order. And that the more empathy you use up front, the more assertive you can be. And I was like, wow, we're on the same sheet of music with these guys. And so I collaborated with those guys. They were very supportive. They were very academic. And they were doing the best they can to move, the art forward as much as they can. I was just a little bit tougher about it than they were.
Does that empathy help build the trust up front, and that's why you can be a little bit tougher on the back end?
Yeah, it does. You'll take a lot of guff from someone who tells you the truth with emotional intelligence. We all love straight shooters. And a straight shooter is a person who tells you the truth and shows you they understand your position. They don't say, I understand. They say, like, look, I know you don't trust me. I know you're worried about how this is going to go. I know you've been burned in the past, and you're probably going to think I'm asking for too much. That's empathy.
Yeah.
Now notice what I said was I didn't deny any of those things. I didn't say, look, I don't want you to feel like you can't trust me. I said, I know you don't trust me. So the big 2mm shift is to really, your gut instinct is going to tell you what the uglies in the room are, and it's calling out the uglies, not denying them. And at some point in time, if we're engaged in a tussle over benefits, you're going to think I'm greedy. So I'm going to say up front, I'm going to say, look, I'm probably going to be greedy. And then you're going to see me as being honest. And that's what's really, that's what the delivery of empathy is. Letting someone know, their position by describing it to them up front.
Well, you're almost like, if you're in the negotiation, disarming them, because if you take the other approach, they're coming in like, well, you are greedy. You've already addressed the elephant in the room to start with.
And you used the perfect word. It is very disarming. And people love straight shooters. They don't like people that hide things from them. They don't like people that, tell them half truths. And they want somebody to deliver bad news. We're collaborating with a company that teaches negotiation in Germany a couple of years ago. And we're emphasizing really hard, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. And we're sitting around having drinks with them that night, and they said, we tell our people this. We say, always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And I'm like, wait a minute. wait, what? There's something in there that doesn't sound right. And what that's called is deception by omission, or deception by the literal truth. And the business world accepts that kind of deception, but it's really bad. They just expect it. So as soon as you don't do that, people trust you because you're not going to hide stuff from them.
Well, one thing I'm curious about, obviously you've run a successful business at this point, so you're in the boardrooms as well. When you walk into a boardroom and there's a business deal on the table, what are you looking for when you come into that room?
Well, we coach people, so I don't normally walk into that room. The literal definition of a coach is he's on the sideline with you, and you're in the game. I'm not going to get in the game for you. I'm gonna coach up on what to do. And I'm going to need you to do exactly what I say, because if it fails, then it's on me. Now, if I coach you up and you don't do it, then why did you even bother spending time with me?
Right.
So we do a lot of deal coaching, a lot. And we coach people whether the house is on fire right now, or whether they just want to raise their prices. And most of the dynamics are pretty predictable. And so I'll chat with you about what you're dealing with. The problems are going to fall into one of three categories normally. I just need to know which ones yours fall into, and how you're going to deliver the message to work your way through it.
What's some of the most common mistakes you see in the negotiation room?
Well, people being afraid to deliver bad news is the first thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so the longer you take delivering bad news, the less communication you have.
And the worse it gets.
And the worse it gets. I mean, it festers. And so teaching people how to deliver bad news. Or let's say the other side's really demanding. Let's say they're attacking you. You're going to get defensive. But in point of fact, they're probably under a lot of pressure. That's the most common reason people attack you and demanding, because the amount of pressure they're under. So instead of pushing back, at some point in time, you can say something like, I get the feeling you're under a lot of pressure here, when they've just demanded something, and they'll be relieved. So it's recognizing the elephant in the room and how to deal with, and there's always an elephant in the room, and then how to deal with it.
Words are just so important. And I mean, I think we've discovered that over the last decade, even more so when it comes to emotional intelligence, EQ over IQ, and what that looks like in the business world. And it's why people have always said, the people who make the most money are doctors, lawyers, and sales, right? Because the doctors and lawyers usually are the people with very high IQs, very intelligent, very smart. And then salespeople, they get people. They know how to relate. They know how to communicate with people, and they know how to break down those walls and those defenses to get to the root issue of a problem. And when you can do that, you have an ability that not everybody has. And would you say that the way to exercise that ability is just trial by fire? I mean, you can, get into a room with another person and role play all day long, but until you get into that room with that person and feel the actual pressure of the meeting, of the sale, of whatever you're trying to accomplish, it's just not going to hit the same.
Well, you need real life experience.
Yeah.
But then how you getting it to get ready in the game?
Yeah.
So when we train negotiations, we we don't do scenarios. But what I'll do is I'll say, what are you passionate about? And you'll tell me. And then I'll say, what about that makes you passionate? And then I'll draw it out of you without sharing any common ground. You know, I love horses too. I love motorcycles too. I love bourbon too. No, you don't say that.
Yeah.
And you actually get people to open up much more quickly. So if you do that in just social interactions, then that's where your practice should be, so that when you have an important negotiation, you've been practicing in small stakes interactions.
Genius. You've already done the work.
Yeah, well, and you know what it's going to feel like when the other side responds.
Well, we hear a lot of times in negotiations, you know, the magic is in the silence. We hear that a lot of time, you know, and that's really where the pressure is when you're talking to that client or whoever it is, and you put something out. The urge that we have as humans is to fill that silence,
especially if you're nervous. Yeah.
How important is it to let the other side talk?
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons for it, and like the first reason, if I say something that you find meaningful, the neuroscience tells us that I'm going to trigger some of your neurochemicals, oxytocin and serotonin, you know, the bonding drug, the honesty drug, and the drug of satisfaction. And in point of fact, it may take up to 6 seconds for those chemicals to work their way through your system. Now, most people can't keep their mouth shut for 2 seconds. But 6 seconds feels like an eternity. But, you know, if I said something meaningful, I got to let it sink in with you. I got to shut the front door. I got to let it have its impact. And that's one of the biggest reasons, because my goal is to show you that I understand, and you're going to feel it. And I got to keep quiet, otherwise I've just interrupted this great reaction that I got started.
I want to do something real quick. We have a timer in front of us. Can we be silent for 6 seconds and just let our listeners know how long 6 seconds actually is and what it feels like? All right, here we go. Ready? And time. That was 6 seconds.
Yeah, way to make it awkward. Everybody's uncomfortable.
It feels like an eternity, but it's really not. It was only 6 seconds.
Yeah, and then and depending upon the type, one of my favorite podcasters is Lex Frieden. Lex, brilliant dude. He falls into the category of analyst. He asked Elon Musk a question, and I think they sat in silence for 22 seconds before Elon answered. Now, if Lex would have opened his mouth before that, it would have destroyed the answer. But you got to let the other side get comfortable and then tell you what's on their mind. It was brilliant.
It's kind of like, you know, when people go to the doctor too, they'll tell the doctor what they think it is, and you're already putting thoughts into the head of the doctor of what it probably is, versus just telling symptoms and letting him her objectively say, hey, I think this is what it is.
Yeah, using the time for analysis.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit about, what was your prep like, or what is your prep like going into a negotiation? Do you take a minute to clear the space, or tell us, what does that look like?
Well, you know, these days, I want to think about, I'm going to guess as to what's going through your mind. You know, what defensive emotions you're probably feeling. You know, I'm going to take a list of them in my head, you know, and usually, like, your gut instinct is really good at figuring this out. What it really comes from is normally, what do you want to deny? I don't want you to think I'm being greedy. I don't want you to think I'm being disrespectful. I don't want you to think I'm asking for too much. That's your gut telling you what's there. And then the shift is, don't deny it, just call it out. So I'll try to have a gut instinct for where you might be coming from. And then I'm going to throw that out to you. And it's not going to have anything to do with the terms. And it's not going to have anything to do with my value proposition. You know, none of my elevator pitch, none of that nonsense. I want to know what's in your head, and the quickest way I can find out is I'll throw something out, and you'll either confirm or you're correct. Now, the magic is in getting corrected, which most people are horrified of.
Yeah.
You know, it's embarrassing to get corrected. No, it's not. not when you understand what you're really getting out of somebody. And that's one of the biggest things I think that defeat people is they got to be perfect, they got to be right, they don't want to get caught off guard. Well, that's where the magic is. And I'm gonna get caught off guard. Then I learned something.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about before. The biggest drawback in humanity is our inaction, or our analysis paralysis, or whatever
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I was listening to an Andy Stanley podcast one time on leadership, and he was talking about, he was like, the only wrong answer is to just not do anything. He was like, if you just never decide to do anything, then you're going to be in the exact same spot with the exact same thoughts in the exact same role every day for the rest of your life. Whereas you can make a choice, even if it's the wrong choice, at least I don't need to do that again. You know what I mean? Like, you're progressing, you're making progress forward.
Well, you got the data. I mean,
Yeah.
if you made the wrong choice, you learned, you got smarter. You might not like the answer, but you got smarter.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take this time in the podcast as we're wrapping up here. Dakota, let's get your thoughts on the bourbon.
Yeah. Let's see. The Difference, Chapter 1, the foundation. I thought it was really good. It has a high heat right on the nose, just right off the tongue, which I enjoy because it kind of hits you. It kind of catches you off guard a little bit. But then, like you're saying, you learn about it. And then the longer it lingers in your mouth, the more flavor you get. And so I got a little bit of caramel right after that burn, and it fades into hints of cherry on the tail end of it. And it's like, it almost leaves a little sweet. Like if you've eaten a cherry and then you kind of like smack it in your mouth a little bit, you get little hints of that cherry, and it's just nice and sweet. So I thought it was a great smooth finish on it too. And you're at a 9.9. I'm going to land straight out of 10. This is everything I'm looking for in a bourbon, is just right there. It's got the heat on the nose. It's got the bourbon flavor, a great bottle, a great story behind it, and a nice sweet finish that leaves me wanting another taste, which is exactly what I'm looking for.
I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Very high praise coming from you, Dakota.
I mean, I am a critic.
Dakota is a bit of a bourbon snob, so
I've been called worse.
Well, how about we land at a 10?
Sounds good
on that. So instead of us doing a half there, we're going to land at a 10.
That sounds good.
So for all our listeners, if you're looking for more information about this, Chris, I know it's kind of silly for me to ask you, but tell our listeners how they can find your information.
Well, the easiest place is on Instagram, the Shareholders Society, and you can get some pictures of it. You get a little bit of the backstory. We've got a bunch of videos there explaining how we found it. Myself, Nick Natton, Roy Milner, how we created this, and then you find an opportunity. Best thing to do is actually, we hold events where we have a great dinner. A good thing about doing business with Nick Natton is you always have fun. Nick is a great host and a great entertainer. And so we have a tasting dinner. You get to meet, besides the bourbon being good, the real thing of this membership-only Shareholders Society is you get to be around some cool people.
Yeah.
And you get to meet the people you're going to hang out with, who want to celebrate life with you, celebrate doing great business with each other or with the people that we did. And the camaraderie in the Shareholder Society is just really a lot of fun.
Love that.
Well, great. Well, if you're listening to this episode next week, we will get more in depth about the Shareholder Society and how.
Is there a part 2?
There is a part 2.
There's a part 2.
One of the rare episodes that we've done 2 parts on. So if you're looking to find out more information about that, tune in next week. And to our listeners, however you stream this podcast, if you would give us a rating and follow us on social media, and we will see you next week. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.